disease, soil, drought. Each season bringing new challenges farmers hope they won't face. Agriculture reporter Marcia Gorel follows the successes and failures of Saline County crops. She and University of Missouri Extension agronomist Wayne Crook will look at what's stunting local growth, what nudges farmers closer to productive harvest, and the science behind mid-Missouri fields.
Welcome to Crop Concerns for Video. This is our 5th edition. I'm Marcia Gorel, the agriculture reporter for the Marshall Democrat News, and I'm here with Wayne Crook, our University of Missouri Extension agronomist. And Wayne, last segment, in our 4th segment, we talked about scouting from the combine and how farmers could scout from the combine. Well, here we are, and harvest is about wrapped up in Saline County. Hopefully farmers did that and took some notes. But now, it seems like every year we start faster and faster getting ready for the next year, and it seems like people are already getting ready for 2012. And I know you wrote about some of the things that they can do this fall to get ready for next year. So can you go over some of those things with us?
Well, one of the main things to do if you haven't done it in a long time is do a soil test so you can evaluate what your nutrient needs are and kind of predict what kind of nutrient needs going to be for the next year. Get those on as soon as possible because fertilizer prices can and probably will change, and probably not for the cheaper. So you can get that done. If you found any problems in the field, such as weeds, then you can use this information to decide what kind of hybrids and what kind of chemical treatment you want for next year, and help you when you purchase your varieties or hybrids and chemicals for next year.
We see some more weeds in the winter than we used to, and fewer people do tillage. And
one of the things we've had with the kind of falls we've been having, we've had better chance and opportunities for weeds, for winter annuals to come up in the fall. And one of the best ways to control them, if you're especially in a no-till position, situation, is go ahead and spray them. If you're into tillage, you can till and get rid of them. But weeds are always easier to kill when they're small, and always earlier you can kill them, the better. The herbicide will provide some control in the spring, but it should really not be considered part of your spring weed control program because the chemicals will play out before the weeds come up in the spring.
right, but it can control them till you can get there in the spring, especially in bean ground, right?
But beans and corn both. There's a lot of weeds that will come up in the fall, like henbit and pennycress. You can get those under control. That will help in the spring, maintaining whatever moisture you have, letting the ground dry out a little bit better if you can get rid of them. And also it'll take less chemicals in the spring to control what weeds are there, because what comes up in the spring is going to be smaller than the ones that start in the fall and have a head start.
Okay, well, we talked about soil tests, and I know that people can take their own soil tests, or they can have a professional come out and take soil tests and do grid sampling, which is basically using GPS to grid sample fields and figure out the fertility. One of the things you wrote about, though, was that sometimes when it's so dry, and it's been really dry this fall, which
Right.
has been a good thing to get harvested, but not such a good thing now. But anyway, the main thing is that you said that could kind of change your soil test. Can you tell about that?
In a year when we normally get some rain and you get some decomposition of the plant material that's in the field, the rain will actually go through the plants and wash the nutrients into the soil. And so basically what the plants are taking up a lot, especially in corn with all the residue we have, a lot of the P and K is still tied up in the plant material, and that won't show up in your soil test. So your soil test will show a higher need for P and K than if we would have had normal rainfall and more material decomposition. Also with the kind of corn hybrids we've got now, they're tougher and they don't decompose as fast.
Right.
And also with using fungicides, they don't decompose as fast. So those nutrients are not going to move out of that residue into the soil as quickly. And so the soil test is going to be effective for some time until that material is actually available from the plant, and it's going to take water to take it out of the plant material into the soil. So results from this fall you would expect to show a greater need than you're probably actually going to need.
Okay.
Depends what the soil test shows on how much is needed too.
Well, do you recommend people wait until it rains, or just take that into consideration when they're analyzing their tests?
If I knew when it was going to rain, it'd be easier to answer it.
A lot of things would be easier if you knew when it was going to rain.
But basically, I just take that into consideration and adjust your soil test accordingly, because if you have a chance to get it on, especially in the fall, that's going to save you time in the spring getting field work done then, especially when it turns off wet next spring.
Okay. I'm here at Central Missouri Agri-Service with Chris Meyer, retail sales out of Marshall, and we're talking about precision ag technology and using it to soil sample area fields. Chris, can you tell me, I know we took some video of Brant and Fitzgerald out in the field taking soil samples using the precision ag technology and using the grid sampling system. Can you tell me what you do with that information after you get the soil results back?
Yeah, what we do is once we get the information back from the field, I take the boundaries and points that they've taken from the field, I put them into my computer. Now the boundaries brought into the computer, and you just go through and pick the grower. In the field or the farm. Okay, now that's in there, and then we'll come in and actually bring in the soil test points that they collected.
And this is after you get the samples back from Midwest Lab?
No, this is before I send everything off, because they have to have this information to collect. This is what they'll be putting together. Basically a book like this, and to get this map they have to have these points set up through the field to know exactly where the sample is taken.
Okay.
There's the field, and there's all the points.
That shows you where they took all the soil samples. Okay. And then once you get the results back,
Yep.
then what happens? Explain that to me.
Once we get the results back, then everything is put into a book like this, and usually we contact the grower. They go through and look at it. Typically they'll look for the lime needs. I mean, that's going to be the number one thing that we would do. And then we would go through for fertilizer and make a recommendation on what the fertilizer need is for PK, sulfur, and zinc.
Okay.
And if everything's okay, then the grower would give us the okay, and I would take the recommendations off of the computer, put it back on a flash drive, and then that would go directly to the rig.
Okay.
To be
And the
spread.
rig. Talk
Yep.
about the rig that they use.
Well, what we use is a dry bed spinner bed. It's a four compartment bed, so we've got a PK, sulfur, and zinc. So each one of those products is separate, and as the machine's going across the field, it's looking at this recommendation and saying what certain parts of the field need PK, sulfur, zinc, and applying variably across that area. So each area of the field gets exactly what it needs.
And not any more or
Not
any
any
less.
more or any less. No. Yep.
Right. And so I know you still do conventional sampling, soil sampling, and you still put on fertilizer conventionally. Can you kind of explain, I know some people are finding that there is an economic advantage. It costs a little bit more to do the grid sampling, but can you explain to me what the advantage is to a farmer or to a landowner to use the grid sampling and precision technology?
The main advantage is going to be that for the grid sampling or the precision sampling, we do it on a 2.5 acre grid. And conventional sampling was typically done anywhere from 10 to 20 acres up to 40 acres per sample. So you have a much larger area with far fewer samples. In one 2.5 acre grid, we're taking 10 to 12 samples, and that's what would be taken on a typical 40 acre grid.
Okay. Okay. Well, I noticed you brought a lot of samples, and one of the things you'd written about in your weekly column was about resistant weeds, and we're having more of a problem with Roundup resistant weeds, and so So is that what you brought samples for today?
One of the weeds we're having the biggest problem with across the United States is water hemp. And we have a water hemp plant right behind you. These plants, when they're growing healthy, can produce over 1 million seeds each. And when I wrote that report a week ago for the article, they had 4 classes of chemical it was resistant to. As of Monday, they reported a 5th one. They've now found 2,4-D resistant water hemp, and it was taking 65 times the recommended amount to actually damage the plant significantly.
Is that right? So what can farmers do about this new problem, new pest?
The best thing is they're gonna have to recognize if they have the problem. And again, this was a case in no-till where they've been using 2,4-D time after time after time. And so anywhere you've got a chemical program that has been continuous over a long period of time, and you're having more trouble killing them or controlling whatever weeds, you need to suspect that you have some kind of chemical resistance.
Okay.
And then you need to check for it, and then you need to get a different group of chemicals. Basically, if you can rotate your chemicals, you got a better chance of controlling them. That's why we get resistant weeds, is we don't get the chemical rotation.
Okay.
Right now there are some other chemicals, but they're going to be more expensive, and they're probably going to damage the crop in the field more. We used to use Cobra and Blazer on soybeans to burn back broadleaves, and it damaged the plants. It looked like it burned them.
Right.
That's what we've got left now.
Okay. But there's some new things coming out, supposedly. Is there anything like that that you can talk about that you know is coming out, or is that just more rumor?
Basically what I've seen coming out is just 2,4-D is one of the possibilities we have of controlling them, but it's had a bad reputation for drifting and hitting off-target plants. They are working on 2 new formulations of 2,4-D that drift less and cause less off-target damage. There are also equipment manufacturers are working on new equipment to eliminate drift.
Okay.
But those are the 2 main things that are available now. There are some other new hybrids coming out that people are working on that can use different chemistries, but you're 3 to 5 years out. So right now, it's the same stuff we already got. We just got to do it in a better way.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess the big question is, and I'm putting you on the spot here, Wayne, but harvest is about done in Saline County. I think there's still some beans still in the field, and actually some corn.
Right.
What kind of yields have you heard? How did they go this year?
It varied a lot. I heard anywhere from 10 bushel to 300 bushel in that this year.
Okay.
And
In bushel corn or beans?
No, corn.
Okay, in corn.
You go down south of I-70 where it's quite a bit drier. 60 to 70 bushel was really a welcome yield. They didn't think they were going to get that. Some was adjusted by insurance adjusters down to 10 bushel an acre.
Is that right?
We've had some 300. The 300 bushel was in an area that had a lot of rain. It was off of a yield monitor, but it was calibrated, and the whole field ran 285 to 300.
Wow.
But in that same area, average yield would probably be 160 to 180.
Okay.
Going across the scales. You go northeast here up in Keatsville, that area, Salisbury, Brunswick, 120 to 140 was a good yield. I've measured 2 yield checks here around Marshall that went around 225.
Wow.
So it's just all over the board. It just depends who got the rain this year, basically.
Okay. All right. My mother-in-law always said the first liar didn't have a chance, so I don't know if that...
That's where the 300 came from.
Is okay. What about soybeans? What about the yields in soybeans this year?
Soybeans had quite a range too. I've heard some people doing 30 bushel, and then I've heard some up to about 60, 65. It's about the high, but up in northwest of here, 50 to 60 would catch a lot of stuff.
Really?
You go south, 30 bushel would catch a lot of it. You go up northeast, probably 40 would catch a lot of it up there. Again, it's just where the rain got. The late beans seem to do better than everybody expected.
Even without any rain, and that's...
Yeah.
Why is that the soybeans did that? Did we learn something new about soybeans this year, or is that just...
They just got lucky because everything else didn't do good.
Is that what it was? Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you, Wayne, for being here today. And I want to thank our videographer, Sarah Reed, for she does the editing and she does all of putting the tape together. And I also want to thank Central Missouri Agri Service for again sponsoring our video. Thank you.